one of the things that the racists and the conservatives have tended to do is to divide and conquer by division. Mm-hmm. And so my question to you is, given our current state of affairs and the admitted racism that there is still left in our society, what sort of umbrella, what sort of proposals would you want to promote that we can somehow, all those who are in favor of and justice for all, that we could somehow all agree and coalesce and work together to try to implement?
That we work on not just trying to resolve our economic difficulties, but we try to once and for all reduce the disparities that exist between people because of their race or their sex or whatever. Because we talk about economic difficulties, and people will talk about economics, but they don't want to talk about disparities. And in any environment, when the economy is bad, you always know what the unemployment figures are going to be when the economy is bad. White unemployment is going to be X, whatever high. Latinos are going to be in the middle, and blacks are going to be at the bottom. They're always going to be twice as high as the white rate. There's only one time since the Depression that it's been different. During the Clinton administration, when we had the technology bubble, for a while the black unemployment rate was not twice as high as the rate. First time. Before this recession, it was twice as high. Now it's twice as high. Black youth unemployment rate is usually about 4 times as high. So what we need to do is to work on disparities between people and trying to even those out in terms of fairness as we look at policies, rather than thinking that if we just do one thing, and we just solve this, then the disparities will be gone, because they don't go away. Disparities everywhere. I don't just mean in the economy, disparities in the criminal justice system. Like, why do you have this high incarceration rate, and what do you do about it? Trying to make sure that we have make sure we've done everything to make sure that we don't have inequality because of something that we failed to do. Now, maybe everybody can get behind that, and then can talk about what policies are necessary to try to get us to that. Yes, Peter.
Mary, one of the things that I would love to live long enough to be able to see now that I'm a black president elected, which I was really surprised about, is that in the future we will actually document that the election in 2000 and the election in 2004, both of those were publicly falsified in very significant ways. It sounds like your commission really documented that for the 2000 election. We know that in Ohio the same kinds of things happened, where the Secretary of State there, who happened to be a black Republican, basically systematically created ways that people were taken off the rolls, not allowed to vote and the like. How do you see that moving forward in some way that will help in the future, that we will know that what I say is the worst possible president that we've ever had will in fact be nailed for that?
Well,
and the administration is pulling back from any kind of prosecution or investigation on all that, but we've got to have something that brings that forward.
Well, we always, as a people in this country, once an administration is over and something happens, people don't want to go back to get a clear idea of what happened before. Every administration that comes in says, well, we shouldn't waste time on going back looking at that. What we should do is just, move ahead. Well, I think that's wrong. And the reason why I think it's wrong is if people know that there's no retribution ever for what they do, then it just encourages the next administration to do things where it cuts corners and does stuff, because they figure nobody's going to do anything and there will never be an accounting. I don't mean even being criminal. I just mean a report or something that says, here's what, and what the Bushites didn't like and hated about our 2001 report was because we documented exactly what they did, and anybody who read it, and not only did people read it, the hearings were seen all around the world. There was television from every corner of the world. It came and covered the whole thing, gavel to gavel. And in this country, people saw it on C-SPAN, and it was gavel to gavel, and it was on CNN and all the networks from time to time. So people saw it. And so they really hated the idea that people really saw what they did. And so I think that there should be, not only on these issues, but all these other issues, like all the stuff that happened in the run-up to the war, all the civil liberties stuff. I mean, people should be held accountable. They should know when they're in administration that someone's going to come back and review what you did. And that's why I think on the civil rights stuff, the commission, if it works properly, is so important, because what it did do was to watchdog what everybody did. It did, before the Reagan thing, it did reports all the time telling the public exactly what these people are doing, that are supposed to be protecting your civil rights, and how many cases they had, and claims, and what they did with them, and what didn't they do with them. And if somebody came and said, well, I've been over at the ELC for 5 years trying to get my claim acted on, they haven't done anything, could you go over there and tell them to do something? They would call up the ELC and say, hey, why haven't you done anything about this claim? You need to do something, or we're going to report to the public that you guys are doing whatever. And so I think that should be done on everything, and I think it's important. Okay, all right, yes, I'll take one more and then I'm done.
Dr. Berry, I should have just wanted to thank you very kindly for not only an edifying discussion, but an inspirational one. Thank you very kindly. Excuse me. And if we could just revisit a moment the notion of disparities that you passed, and the question of assuaging these disparities. Did you have, with an optimum measure of specificity, a policy or procedure that could necessarily be administered to or implemented that would necessarily serve that purpose?
A goal, you should set goals. Goals should be that the unemployment rate across all sectors should be about the same, given the percentage of people in every metropolitan area or these census areas, that we expect them to be about the same. And they may not be, and there may be reasons why it isn't, and this and that, and there may be human capital, there may be all kinds of reasons. But the goal is to try to see if you can get the goal in everything. The goal in healthcare is to see to it that people are served by clinics in every area without regard to the race or whatever it is, or whatever. That people have an equal opportunity to go to nursing homes that are certified to be of quality levels without regard to who they are. That's not true either. It's not true. All these areas where we know, I mean, I can name disparities. The goal is to reduce the incarceration rate, one, and two, to even out the disparities and look at what kind of offenses are there and see what we can do so that we don't have these huge gaps. What's happening in the country? In other words, to see disparities as signs that something is wrong that needs to be fixed, rather than just tolerating them and moving on and saying, well, you know, that's just the way things are. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.